The first time I saw him in our apartment building, I knew he was trouble. Not the kind that makes you run away, but the kind that makes your heart skip a beat while your brain screams caution. My name is Alex, and I've always prided myself on being level-headed, focused, and not easily swayed by a pretty face or charming smile. I'd moved into the Westlake apartments just 3 months ago, fresh out of college with my first real job at a marketing firm downtown. The building was nothing special, exposed brick in some places, questionable plumbing in others, but it was mine, and that's what mattered. Then there was Ethan. Tall, with dark hair that always looked like he'd just run his hands through it, and eyes that seemed to see right through you. He lived 2 doors down from me, apartment 4C to my 4A. Ethan worked nights as a bartender at some upscale place downtown, which meant our schedules rarely aligned. But when they did, when we'd pass each other in that narrow, dimly lit hallway with the flickering overhead light that the landlord never seemed to fix, there was something electric in the air between us. I should mention that I'd never been particularly sure about my sexuality. I'd dated women throughout college, had a serious girlfriend for almost 2 years, but there had always been something missing. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on until I found myself looking forward to those brief hallway encounters with Ethan a little too much. Our first real conversation happened about a month after I moved in. I was struggling with my grocery bags, trying to fish my keys out of my pocket without dropping the carton of eggs I'd splurged on, when he appeared beside me. "Need a hand?" he asked, and without waiting for an answer, he took the heaviest bag from me. His fingers brushed against mine, and I felt that strange flutter in my stomach that I'd been trying to ignore. "Thanks," I managed, finally retrieving my keys. "I always overestimate how much I can carry." He smiled, not the polite smile of a neighbor helping out, but something warmer, more genuine. "I'm Ethan, by the way." "For C. Alex," I replied. "4A. "I know," he said, and something about the way he said it, like he'd noticed me just as much as I'd noticed him, made my cheeks warm. After that, our encounters became less accidental. We'd check our mail at the same time, or I'd happen to be taking out the trash when he was coming home from work. Small talk turned into real conversations. I learned he was saving up to open his own restaurant someday. He learned I had an unhealthy addiction to true crime podcasts and couldn't cook anything more complicated than pasta. The dynamics of our friendship, if that's what it was, were complex from the start. There was an undercurrent of something more, a tension that neither of us acknowledged but both clearly felt. When he'd lean against my doorframe as we talked, or when I'd find excuses to ask him for help with things I could easily handle myself, we were dancing around something neither of us was ready to name. Everything changed the night of Mrs. Perlman's party. She lived on the first floor and hosted monthly gatherings for the building residents. Potluck affairs that most people attended out of politeness rather than enthusiasm. I'd gone mainly because I'd promised to bring my mom's famous spinach dip, and partly because I knew Ethan would be there between his afternoon shift and evening shift at the bar. The party was like any other building gathering. Awkward small talk, too much wine in plastic cups, and Mrs. Perlman's cat weaving between people's legs. Ethan arrived late, hair damp from a recent shower, wearing a simple black button-up that made his eyes look even more intense. He caught my gaze across the room and smiled, making his way over to where I stood by the window. "Didn't think parties like this would be your scene," he said, accepting a cup of wine from Mrs. Perlman as she bustled past. I shrugged. Free food, free drinks, and the chance to hear Mr. Doherty from 2B tell his fishing stories for the 100th time? How could I resist? He laughed, and I noticed how the sound seemed to travel through me, settling somewhere deep in my chest. We spent the rest of the evening together, huddled in our corner, creating our own private world amidst the party. He told me about growing up in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business, about his dreams of creating a restaurant that felt like home for people who didn't have one. I told him about my family, my job, my fears that I'd chosen the wrong career path. "You know," he said, refilling my cup, "you never talk about relationships. No girlfriend? Boyfriend?" The question hung between us, weighted with possibility. "Not currently," I answered carefully. "My last relationship ended about a year ago." I hesitated, then decided on honesty. She said I always seemed like I was looking for something else. I'm still not sure what she meant. His eyes held mine, and I felt exposed, like he could see all the questions I'd been asking myself lately. "Maybe you just haven't found what you're looking for yet," he said quietly. The party wound down around 11, and we found ourselves walking back up to our floor together. The hallway seemed narrower than usual, the dim lighting more intimate. We reached my door first, and I fumbled with my keys, suddenly nervous. "Thanks for making that party bearable," I said, trying to sound casual. "Anytime," he replied, but he didn't move to continue down to his own apartment. Instead, he stood there, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The silence stretched between us, filled with all the things neither of us had said. I was about to bid him goodnight when he reached past me and flipped the hallway light switch, plunging us into near darkness. The only illumination came from the exit sign at the far end of the corridor, casting everything in a faint red glow. Before I could ask what he was doing, he stepped closer. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the faint scent of his cologne mixed with the wine we'd been drinking. My heart hammered against my ribs as he moved even closer, until my back was against the wall beside my door. He placed one palm flat against my chest, not pushing hard, but firmly enough that I could feel the pressure of each of his fingers through my shirt. The touch sent electricity coursing through me, and I forgot how to breathe. "Tell me if I'm reading this wrong," he murmured, his voice lower than I'd ever heard it. His face was inches from mine, his eyes searching my face for any sign of resistance or discomfort. I should have been scared, or at least surprised, but all I felt was an overwhelming sense of rightness, as if everything in my life had been leading to this moment. The questions I'd been asking myself, the feeling that something had always been missing, it all made sense now. "You're not," I whispered, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, but when I responded by sliding my hands up to his shoulders, pulling him closer, it deepened into something more urgent. His hand moved from my chest to the nape of my neck, fingers tangling in my hair. My mind went blank, filled only with sensation, the softness of his lips, the strength in his hands, the solid warmth of his body against mine. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, he rested his forehead against mine. "I've wanted to do that since the first time I saw you struggling with your mail," he admitted. I laughed softly, dizzy with the revelation of what had just happened, what it meant. "Why did you wait so long? I wasn't sure if you were interested, or if you'd ever been with a guy before." "I haven't," I confessed, "but I've thought about it. About you, specifically." He pulled back slightly, studying my face in the dim red light. "Are you okay with this? With what just happened?" Was I? The kiss had awakened something in me, brought clarity to feelings I'd been trying to understand for years. But it also opened the door to a world of complications I hadn't prepared for. How would my family react? My friends? Would this change how I saw myself? "I'm more than okay," I said finally. "I'm just processing. This is new territory for me." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "We can take it slow, figure it out together." A door opened somewhere down the hall, and we quickly stepped apart. The spell was broken, but the connection remained, vibrating between us like a plucked string. "I should go," he said, though he made no move to leave. "I have the late shift tonight." "Right." I nodded, still feeling the ghost of his lips on mine. "I'll see you tomorrow?" He smiled, and in that smile, I saw a promise, possibility. "Count on it." After he left, I entered my apartment and leaned against the closed door, my mind replaying every moment of what had just happened. The hallway, the darkness, his hand on my chest, the kiss that had changed everything. I touched my lips, still feeling the pressure of his against them, and tried to make sense of the emotions swirling through me. It wasn't just physical attraction, though that was certainly part of it. It was recognition, a feeling of pieces falling into place. All those relationships that had never quite felt right, the sense that I was missing something fundamental, it all made sense now. I hadn't been looking for the right person, I'd been looking in the wrong places. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned, alternating between replaying our kiss and panicking about what it meant for my identity, my future. By morning, I'd come to one conclusion. Whatever this was with Ethan, I wanted to explore it further. The next few weeks were a delicate dance of discovery. We'd meet in the evenings when his schedule allowed, sometimes at my place, sometimes at his. We talked for hours, filling in the gaps in our knowledge of each other. I learned about his coming out at 16, the difficult relationship with his father that followed, his close bond with his younger sister who had always supported him. He learned about my conservative upbringing, my confusion about my sexuality, my fear of disappointing my parents. And yes, there were more kisses. More moments pressed against walls, not just in the hallway but in kitchens, living rooms, once even in the laundry room in the basement when we both happened to be doing laundry at midnight. Each time, the rightness of it reinforced my growing certainty that this was who I was meant to be, who I had always been but hadn't recognized. Our physical relationship progressed slowly, both of us aware of my inexperience and the significance of each new step. Ethan was patient, never pushing, always checking that I was comfortable. It was a revelation, this kind of consideration, this attentiveness to my needs and boundaries. Not everything was smooth sailing, of course. About a month into our relationship, if that's what it was, we hadn't yet put a label on it, my college friend Mike came to visit. He was staying with me for the weekend, and I hadn't told him about Ethan. Not because I was ashamed, but because I was still figuring things out, still finding the words to explain this new part of myself. Ethan understood my hesitation, but I could see the hurt in his eyes when I introduced him as my neighbor when we ran into each other in the hall. Mike was oblivious, friendly but dismissive, and as soon as he was back in my apartment, he started questioning me. "That guy seemed pretty intense," he commented, opening a beer from my fridge. "Gives off weird vibes." "What do you mean?" I asked, defensive without meaning to be. Mike shrugged. "I don't know. The way he was looking at you. Like he wanted something." My heart raced. Was it that obvious? Had Ethan's feelings for me been written all over his face? And if Mike could see it, who else could? "He's just a neighbor," I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. "We're friendly." Mike seemed to accept this, but the encounter left me shaken. That night, after Mike had gone to bed on my couch, I texted Ethan, "I'm sorry about earlier. I'm not ashamed of this, of us. I'm just not ready to explain it when I barely understand it myself." His reply came quickly. "I get it. Take your time. I'll be here when you're ready." The weekend with Mike passed in a blur of old stories and new awkwardness. I found myself constantly editing what I said, careful not to mention Ethan too much, not to reveal the thoughts that now occupied most of my waking hours. By the time Mike left on Sunday evening, I felt exhausted from the effort of hiding such a significant part of my life. As soon as he was gone, I went straight to Ethan's apartment. He opened the door, surprise registering on his face at my unannounced visit. "I'm sorry," I said immediately, "for not being honest with Mike, for making you feel like a secret I'm ashamed of." He pulled me inside, closing the door behind me. "Alex, I told you I understand. Coming out is a process, and it's different for everyone." "But that's just it," I said, the realization crystallizing as I spoke. "I don't want it to be a process. I don't want to hide how I feel about you, or what I'm discovering about myself. I want to be honest, with myself, with you, with everyone else." Something shifted in his expression then, a softening, a hope. "And how do you feel about me?" It was the question we'd been dancing around for weeks. What were we to each other? What did I want us to be? "I think I'm falling in love with you," I admitted, the words both terrifying and liberating. "And I think I have been since that first day in the hallway." His smile was like sunrise, gradual and beautiful. He crossed the room to me, took my face in his hands. "I know I'm in love with you," he said simply. "I have been for a while now." That night marked another first for us, another step in our evolving relationship. Afterward, lying in his bed with his arm around me, I felt a peace I hadn't known was possible. This was right. He was right. We were right together. The next few months were a journey of coming out, to my friends first, then my sister, finally my parents. Some reactions were supportive, others confused, a few hurtful. My father, in particular, struggled with the news, his religious beliefs clashing with his love for me. But even in the difficult moments, I had Ethan beside me, his steady presence a reminder of why this honesty was worth the pain. Our relationship deepened as we navigated these challenges together. We learned each other's habits, preferences, the small details that make up a life. He couldn't function without coffee in the morning. I was useless before 9 a.m. regardless of caffeine. He was meticulously organized. I tended toward creative chaos. He loved old movies. I preferred books. But in the important things, values, goals, the vision of a future together, we were aligned. 6 months after that first kiss in the hallway, we decided to move in together. Not to a new place, but to his apartment, which was slightly larger and got better light in the mornings. The day I moved my things down the hall was both ordinary and monumental, a simple change of address that represented so much more. That evening, after we'd arranged my books alongside his on the shelves and found space for my clothes in his closet, we stood in the hallway outside what was now our apartment. The same hallway where everything had begun. "Remember the first time?" he asked, a mischievous glint in his eye as he reached for the light switch. I laughed, warmth spreading through me at the memory. "How could I forget? You nearly gave me a heart attack." The lights went out, and in the familiar red glow of the exit sign, he stepped closer, just as he had that night. But this time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty. When he placed his palm against my chest and pushed me gently against the wall, it felt like coming home. "I knew, even then," he murmured against my lips. "I knew you were going to change my life." I pulled him closer, marveling at how far we'd come, how much had changed because of one moment of courage in a darkened hallway. "You changed mine too," I whispered. "You helped me find myself." Our kiss was a promise, a celebration, a beginning. In that moment, I was certain of two things: that I had found what I'd been looking for all along, and that the journey was just beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together in the light. As we made our way back into our apartment, hand in hand, I couldn't help but smile at the thought of that first night. He had shut off the hallway lights, pushed me to the wall with one palm at my chest, and in doing so, illuminated the path to the rest of my life. Sometimes, it seems, you have to stand in darkness to finally see the light. Total _char_count. 18,445.